Welcome to the Dragon's Den. I am your venerable host, Orochi, and today we are talking about the only thing that really matters dragons. Specifically, today we are talking about Dragon's Sense, a book series by Derek Fung. This is book one, Dragonkin. In this series, it's about a young dragon who lives in a world where there's basically just humans and dragons, and they don't really get along, but dragons, as always, consider themselves above humans, and so they keep themselves apart. But humans are steadily encroaching on dragon territory, and so as there's sort of like a dragon council made of the eldest dragons that most of the other dragons go to get advice from, and there's a big summit at the very start of the book to see what is to be done about the humans encroaching on dragon territory, and it sets off a sort of reignites the kindling of the dragon past of there was a dragon war and all these bad things happened, and the eldest are immortal dragons. They were the first dragons ever created by the gods, and they are immortals, and they have this rigid mindset of how dragons are supposed to act, and they do their best to keep dragons safe and secure in their lands and in their power. And so all these changes that are going on set off old problems. And it's about this young dragon trying to find his place in this world where humans are encroaching into his territory, and the Dragon Council is just like, it's not a problem, don't worry about it, go about your life, do your thing. And it's about him discovering a friendship with a specific human and discovering that he has powers that are outlawed by the Elder Council and how he goes about dealing with those problems. So if you like a sort of book that's dealing with a young dragon trying to find his place in the world while making friends with the sorts of people that he's not supposed to hang out with, and dealing with being of a different type than is socially acceptable, those kind of things, then this is definitely the book for you. And so it's written for a younger audience, I will say, because the prose isn't super deep or anything, but the story goes along very nicely. All in all, it's just a fantastic little book for cheap, and definitely worth picking up if you like dragons at all, really, and trying to find your place in the world. So with that said, starting to delve into spoilers a little bit, but not at first. First thing I would like to say, one of the core elements of the backstory of this is that there was a giant war between all of dragonkind because dragons were created by the gods to replenish the earth. They have the power to make plants grow, to replenish the soil, to bring life to the planet itself. And they do this through, in this story specifically, it's sort of they do it through their songs, but it's only for those who have the specific talent to do so, which all dragons in the early, before the Great War, had this power. And it was a fantastically destructive power as well, because it was sort of like you could not quite reshape reality as high fantasy magic wizards kind of stuff can do, but it's was very powerful. There was a big war because all the dragons were in different clans, and so all the clans were warring with each other. And so the Dragon Council just said, okay, no more war, you're done. We strip everybody of their ability to use Dragon Song. And so being born with this ability in a time where it is outlawed becomes a bad thing. So more in depth, I adore this sort of look at things because coming from like a Dungeons and Dragons background, a lot of the highest level, like most potent spells, like the simple potent spells, especially in older editions, were called power words. There was power word stun, power word sleep, power word kill, and they were just like single words that were so strong they would just enact this thing that was that word. And it said that spellcasting was all learned from the dragon language. So when you put these things together, it's the dragon language is like pure magical essence itself, and just speaking that language can alter the fabric of reality a little bit and make these things happen. I love that idea so much. Obviously, it can't be one for one like that, so dragons would obviously have like a standard language that they talk in that doesn't like magically affect everything around them. And so I think like High Draconic is the old tongue that the first dragons were born with and gifted by whatever divine powers created them to be able to shape reality and hopefully use that power for good. And I adore that idea. That concept is so cool to me. And then this takes that a little bit farther to its natural conclusion that if the original language of the gods given to dragons to do magic, the words are so powerful, what happens if you sing that language? And that is the basis of the main character's power, is that he's gifted with dragon song and he can learn to do catastrophically powerful things. And I honestly think more stories need to include that because it's just such a cool concept. Even if it isn't the main focus of your story like this one is, it's so cool and rooted in some old role-playing stuff, and it's just like lots of people would do well to use that sort of stuff. So the beginning of this story, it's just the main character, Brasalis, living in his cave, and he's near Morales, his guardian, because his parents are dead. And so, right at the start, there's a call by the elders to have a meeting, and they go over the problem of humans encroaching their lands, and the elders are just like, it's not a problem, it's fine, everything's fine, we don't care. They don't say we don't care, but it's basically they don't care about humans. Humans are so beneath the first ones that they just don't even matter. And so there's dragons that are just like, well, my territory is being taken from me, and humans have advanced to the point where they're strong enough to injure dragons and scare them away. And so what do I do about this problem of, I can't fight these humans by myself because they come in big groups and they're taking my land? And the elders are just like, it's not a problem, don't worry about it. Because the only thing the elders think about are the people who are born with this power that they've outlawed, and they're consumed relentlessly with stamping people that have this power out, getting rid of them so that it cannot disrupt the peace that they've brought. And so Bersalis goes home, and then he learns. Actually, no, not right off. He goes home, has a talk with his mentor, and he's like, I don't see what the big problem is with humans. Why can't we just talk to them and tell them, hey, this is our land, stay off. Stay out. Go away. We won't attack you, you don't attack us, go somewhere else. And so he goes exploring a little bit, and he gets himself caught in a trap. And luckily, a young human boy by the name of Galen comes by and frees him, and they become fast friends. They just start talking with each other, and they're like, oh, hey, you're actually pretty cool. I was kind of told, humans were vicious, marauding land stealers that came in big groups or whatever, but you're like really small and easy to manage and easy to get along with. And Galen's like, wow, you are super cool. You're a dragon. I thought dragons were pretty cool, but everybody told me that they were dangerous and all this stuff. So, it's all about them getting over their, they were told excuse me, this and that, but they kind of didn't believe it because these two were obviously either fated because of their personalities to run into each other and just become fast friends, because they're just like, yeah, you're actually really cool to talk with. So awesome. I want to know more about you. You want to know more about me. Quick friendship. But then it quickly becomes a problem because nobody else, of course, in Galen's village is going to accept a dragon because they're, typical humans terrified of dragons and stuff. And you find out some about Galen's family, his mom and dad, and he's got a weird relationship with his older brother because it's his half-brother, and he never refers to him even when it's Galen's perspective in the book, because this perspective swaps back and forth between those two characters. They're both kind of the main character of the story. And so when it's in Galen's perspective, he never calls his older brother or even thinks about his older brother as brother. He always refers to him as the farmhand, which is super weird, and it kind of gives you this feeling that there's a rift between them that can't be overcome. But they're like great friends, and they care a lot about each other all the time, and there's, in their interactions throughout the entire book, there's never a moment that makes you think that there's this rift between them, but because of the wordage chosen from Galen's perspective to talk about his older brother, it makes you think that there is. And I find that super strange. I don't know if it's like an accidental sort of thing. It's like not meant to imply this, but it's weird. I mean, I don't have a half brother. Well, I do have half siblings that I've only met a few times, but I have never grew up with a half sibling to know what it's like to have those sort of siblings. But I've had friends before that were half siblings, and I never got the feeling that they felt that sort of automatic rift between them because they were friends. So it's kind of weird. But his mom and dad are farmers, and they've got a nice little quaint life. But then everything goes to shit because Bersalis gets attacked by the owners of the trap, which are an experienced squad of dragon hunters. So they start attacking Bersalis, and they've got this poison that numbs him some. And Galen quickly comes to his rescue, and it's like, "Oh, don't hurt him. He's not a threat or whatever." And the dragon hunters don't care. It's their job. They get paid a lot of money for turning dragons in, dead or alive, somewhere. So they don't really care what anybody else is. And they're sort of they're not even like from this area. They're from another kingdom or something, and they're just freelancing here for money. So this is really just a job for them, and they could maybe even get brought up on charges of poaching if, like the King's Guard or whatever come around, because one of the subordinates is like, yeah, we gotta make sure that the King's Guard isn't around or anything. So these guys just want to be quick and done with this as fast as possible. They don't care about anything else besides doing their job and making some money. So when Galen steps in, he kind of gets shoved off, and they're like, "Don't get in the way, kid, or else you're gonna end up getting hurt too." And so it draws a crowd, and all these people are just like, "Oh wow, yeah, get the dragon out of here!" But wait, Galen and his dad are kind of getting in on this, and Galen's dad steps up for him. Is like, "Hey, don't hurt my kid." Whatever. If he says that this dragon's decent, then it's probably decent. You guys should maybe just calm the hell down. You probably shouldn't even be here. And they just outright kill his dad. They just murder Galen's dad. Immediate start for tragic backstory. And then Galen helps Brisalis escape, and the two of them get away. And that's the beginning of their tragic tale of adventure, because things do not go well for either of them for quite a while after that, because the dragon hunters ransack the town some as revenge for letting their prize get away. So eventually when Galen does come back, he's a little bit estranged because everybody considers it his fault. And then he finds out that his dad used to be a mage of some sort, because the town's old, hermit, old weirdo or whatever. Of course, Galen's friends with him, and he tells Galen, it's like, yeah, your father kept you away from your true heritage, but now that he's gone, I want to offer it to you so that you at least know that you have some choices. And he said, your father went to a magical college to learn spell work, and spell work in this series is like so many others, and it's handed down through the blood. So because his father was a mage and his grandfather was a mage, he has that potential too. And so he's kind of conflicted. Is like, my dad never told me any of this stuff, so I'm not sure if I should really look into this. But he eventually does, and he goes to school, and it's, kind of school, kind of garbage. It starts off a little bit of that, stereotypical bullying, because he's the smart weirdo and he makes another smart weirdo friend, but he's sort of like just there to figure out why he has this magic, what it can do, and his like more about dragons and how he can get back in touch with Brisalis and all that stuff. Meanwhile, Brisalis finds out that he has the voice and that power, and that he will be hunted down and killed because of it. And when that happens, his mentor Morales sacrifices himself so Brisalis can get away. And so then both of the main characters have lost their, quintessential father figures at that point. So they have that sort of thing in common. And then Brisalis flees and goes north because he's heard of the sanctuary that's at the North Pole, where there's a bunch of renegade dragons who have an encampment and safety for all of the dragons that have the voice, and they call themselves Uzumai. So he travels for a while, goes into the desert, gets attacked manages to escape again, but he's wounded, and then he gets found by uh, a young dragoness who kind of nurses him back to health for a while, and they get to know each other, and he gets to know that she's Uzumai too. And she's the last dragon in the area, because they've all kind of been hunted down and driven out because they were either Uzumai or had, helped Uzumai go north. And so she's sort of the last one left, and nobody, she has nobody, and nobody understands how she is. So the two of them become fast friends because they have all these connections. And her name's what was her name? He calls her Lammy. Her full name is Laramaxis or Lamarixis. I forget what the full name is, but he calls her Lammy. That's sort of his pet name, and they get very close. They both manage to make it to the Dragon Sanctuary, and they meet the leader of the sanctuary, and he finds out that his mother used to be the leader of the sanctuary, and she was kind of the one who started the entire idea of the Uzumai and coming together to defend themselves against the Dragon Firstborn, and just being a freedom fighter and just being like, we deserve to live as much as anybody else does. And so with all this new knowledge and everything, he kind of gets introspective and a little bit depressive for a while. And he eventually makes some new friends this place. Some other young dragons are a bit older than him. But he starts getting taught how to use the voice to help restore the land, because they're in the North Pole, and they've got a magical barrier up, and within that barrier, which is it's like 10-20 miles wide or something, it's a fairly big sanctuary, and everything inside of it is lush and green and growing, because all these dragons have the voice, and they're learning to use it to restore the land. And the sanctuary itself is sort of proof of concept that, this is what dragons were designed to do. This is kind of their moral obligation to help restore the land and make it grow. So the entire idea of the first ones trying to wipe them out is kind of, against most of the things that they were created to do. And I also really love with this story that when the perspective shifts to the first ones and shows their point of view some, I like that they're bad guys, but they're not like super totalitarian evil bad guys. It's like they're just over cocky assholes, because due to their immortality, they're kind of stuck in their ways, and their one defining aspect between all of them is that they're terrified of another dragon war, because dragons went from being, dominating the world to like only a third of their population surviving the war. So the first ones are terrified that if that happens again, dragons might go extinct. So their one thought between all of them, one thought that they have is like, we need to prevent the war, period. That's it. That's the only kind of thought that they actually have. And everything else is just designed from that one thought of, we must prevent the war at all cost. And the reason why the war was so bad is because of the voice. So we've made the voice illegal, and we must eradicate anybody who has the voice. And so they're definitely the bad guys. They're but the reason they're doing it is because they're just terrified of more death and destruction. But it's also interesting that while their motives themselves are good and altruistic, even in the way they go about it, is they're just assholes. They're just cocky assholes that are like, we're the first ones. We'll eventually kill them all. It doesn't matter. Like, we're so powerful that nothing they do really matters. They're hiding themselves now, but as soon as we find them, we'll take them out. It's just a matter of time. And they're just like almost comedically over the top in their arrogance, which is hilarious. Because then when they lose, it's just great. It's just like, oh, you were up on your high horse and then you get knocked the frig down. Because eventually they do find out where the sanctuary is, and I forget if it was just two of them. I think there's like 6 firstborn, and like 2 of them go to the sanctuary because one of them is what is her nickname is the Peacebringer or something, and then one of the other ones follows her because she's super cocky, super hot-headed, and she's just like, I am the law. What the Dragon Council say goes, and I enforce that law to everyone, including the other council members, because I am the strongest. And so she immediately goes there when she finds the information out about where the sanctuary is, because she's like, it is my responsibility to make sure that this rebellion gets stomped, and the sooner the better, so I have to go do it. And she goes there, and she fights against Brisalis, and she loses. Not before taking out Lammy, though, and almost killing his sort of new adopted family. There's a pair of older dragons who they kind of take care of him a little bit, and he likes them a lot, and they're living proof because they're dragons from 2 different clans who survived the old war. And, the old war was just, the clans were all different colors, and so dragons of different colors did not mix back then. But these 2 older dragons are different colors, and they love each other, and so they're kind of, like, all the stuff in the sanctuary is just proof of how wrong the first ones are, which is super interesting, but they don't care. The only thing they care about is annihilating the Uzumai and establishing their rule and their law the way they see it, and they're kind of out of touch with everything that's going on. So upon losing Lammy and having, his almost like adopted parents, his new adopted parents being close to annihilated as well, he sings the song of destruction and wrecks, like, not by himself, because multiples of the other dragons chime in and use their power to help pin the peacemaker down with vines and stuff, and he assaults her and knocks everything out of her and forces her to admit defeat and trying to crush her ego, and makes her go away. But of course that doesn't work, because when you are just, egomaniacs, that's the only thing you have going for you, so you can't lose that. So even after she flees, she's just like, we will be back. And so it's, a hollow victory for him, because after losing her, he realizes that he's kind of fallen in love with Lammy. And so that's sort of like, that's a deep cut. That's a real deep cut that, it takes losing somebody to realize how much you care about them. So that's the end of Brisalis' side of the story, whereas Galen is learning about magic at the school, but then he manages to convince one of his teachers to let him, because he talks about dragons so much, let him into the secret archive where they have stored the journals of one of the greatest mages to ever live. And the reason why he was the greatest is because he had a dragon partner. And the two of them were the strongest thing in their age. And they fought in the war and could have maybe put a stop to it. But they were... the dragon was killed, and the wizard slowly lost his mind and just went crazy. And as he was losing his mind, he wrote all these journals, and by the end, he had kind of just, you know, gone over the deep end into depression and all that kind of stuff, because it was like losing a part of his soul, because they were soul bonded. And so Galen's super interested in this kind of stuff, because he's like, maybe Brisalis and I can have a connection like this, because we get along super well, and, you know, no human and dragon have ever really gotten along at all or even talked much since the first pair or before that. That's the only recorded pair of even any interaction between dragon and humans that weren't, you know, just straight up combat and stuff. So he's very interested in that. And then it kind of reminds him, it's like, you know, why is he at school learning about this stuff when he should be with his friend, because his friend needs him. He was driven out of his home and stuff. So then Galen just quits school, just leaves. And the mentor that is super interested in him says, all right, well, it's going to be a very hard journey for you, so I'll go with you. And then also his best friend, who's an alchemist, and alchemy isn't considered real magic at the school, even though they teach it, so everybody, you know, dumps on this kid. But Galen's just like, I'm a bumpkin from, you know, the sticks. Everybody else here is from a big named family. They're all super rich and magical and, you know, jackasses of the highest order, so they crap on me. So what do I give a shit if, you know, my bad status is lowered because I'm talking with somebody who's beneath my status? It's like, I don't give a crap. So he makes friends with this alchemist, and the alchemist is like, oh my god, somebody's actually willing to be my friend, and so decides to give up everything and go on this journey with Galen, which is kind of a big deal. Like, telling, you know, this person you've known for only like 6 months or so is like, hey, I'm quitting this prestigious friggin' school that we're in, and I'm going on the journey up north. Don't know how long it's gonna take or where exactly I'm going. I just know I'm going north. Want to go with? So they're pretty good friends at that point for him to, you know, just be like, yeah, I'll go on this journey with you. Sure, I'll throw everything I know, and the only chance of my family, you know, accepting me as a person by learning how to do this stuff, sure. You know? So the kid gives up a lot to go on this journey. And they go for a ways, and then they get separated from the teacher because he gets summoned back to the school, and he's like, I gotta go deal with this thing real fast, and like stay here at this town for a few days. Like, I'll be back within a week maximum. So 2 weeks later, they're like, well, we can't just sit here. We're burning through our money and not getting anything done, so we got to continue on. So they just continue on their journey, and they don't meet up. They keep telling themselves, oh, we'll meet up with our teacher later. He'll be able to find us. He's a super powerful mage. He'll be able to find us. And they continue on their journey to try and reunite Galen with his dragon. And that is pretty much the entirety of Dragon Sense. There's a lot of cool things in here, and I like the sort of way that it takes the like academy, magic academy kind of thing, and just spins it around for a little bit, and then just dumps it right out the window. It's just like, hey, we're doing this thing for a little bit. Nah, that sucks. Let's dump that. Get rid of it. I thought that was interesting. It was enough for him to get the kind of information. Galen got the information he needed to be able to be like, hey, what if I don't need actual training? What if the bond I already have with the dragon is enough to, make my magic all that it needs to be? It's not like I really care about learning magic anyway. I'm just doing it because it was the thing my dad had, and I wanted to kind of get closer to him. But I understand now why he left this, because these guys are all assholes. It's like the super elite, and yeah. So I really like, even from both perspectives, both characters go through some really interesting things and have a fair amount of character growth for both of them too, because, Galen's just, country bumpkin kind of stuff and just super simple at first, but he very open-minded, likes dragons, even though nobody else is open-minded. So all the time he's all just like, well, he's pragmatic. I appreciate that a lot. And so every time he makes a decision, he's like, well, this isn't really doing anything for me. Let's try something else. And Brasalis is cool because, he doesn't think much of anything at the beginning, because he's just like, well, I'm just living my life, doing what I can. I have to trust the elders because that's what everybody does, but like, we've got problems and nothing's being done about them. And he just quickly becomes disillusioned with the status quo, and then when he's discovers that he's in direct opposition to the forces that be, it kind of just sends him into, I was like, well, I can't be bad because I'm me, and I've already started to see how, the forces that be are not doing a good job anyway, so there has to be something better than what we have. And so he goes to try and find it. And every piece along the way, he's kind of, gaining his confidence in himself and his abilities. Because it's sort of the thing where it's like, if super powerful immortals kind of tell you, is like, hey, you were born with this ability, and it kind of makes you evil because you have mass destructive power. It's like, what if you were born with the ability to, like set off bombs accidentally in places? It's like, well, that's bad. That's dangerous and bad, and you're a danger to other people. So maybe that's your fault, and you should do the right thing there. But he starts getting more confidence in himself, and finally learns that, hey, the ability isn't all bad, and it's actually, people have done good with it. So everything he was taught about it was kind of wrong. And then he slowly, gets up his confidence to the point where he can actually defend the sanctuary and attacks one of the first ones. So it's really interesting character growth and a lot of cool themes with it. Great book. Then, real quick, we're going to go on to Book 2, Broken Dragon Bonds. This is basically sees the continuation of Galen's journey with his friend, and how the two of them start growing rapidly because they're having their own adventure. It takes them quite a long time to get where they're going, so a lot of things happen to them. And they start, learning that, hey, they can trust each other. They great companionship between the two of them, and his friend's all down about himself because, you know, it's like, oh, I'm just an alchemist. I don't have real magic. I'm not good at anything. But, you know, he saves Galen's life with knowing how to cure poison and fatigue and all this other stuff. So Galen's just like, you're amazing. You saved my life. All the stuff that you know how to do is useful. It has practical friggin' uses. So he's like, yeah, you're amazing. Like, the stuff you know is useful. The stuff I can do, stupid. It's like, magic is the kind of stuff you do when you're lazy or, you know, you want to hurt people. It doesn't have good practical uses. So to Galen, it's like his friend's stuff is much more useful than the stuff he was being taught, which I super appreciate. That's such a good take on things. And then he slowly starts to, you know, learn that they run into an old man who's in the woods, and they've run out of food, and, you know, they're half starving, their clothes are all wrecked, and he's like, well, I haven't seen nobody in a long time, so sure, it'd be great to have company, and I can get you some food and maybe get you some new clothes and stuff, and be all good. And so they stay with this guy for a little while, and it readily becomes apparent that the guy's off. Talks to himself some, and not in the, you know, good kind of way. He, like, sort of has conversations with himself a little bit, but Galen's all like, no, it's fine, we can't be rude and just leave on him. He fed us a really good meal, and he's lonely, and he just needs people to talk to. We can stay for a couple of days, get our strength back, because they kind of withered away some. So he's like, you know, a few days of good food and good rest, and we'll be strong enough to continue our adventure. But then his friend kind of does a little bit of exploring around and finds a corpse in the old man's shed, and the old man flips out and ties them both up, and he's quick to find out that he's got multiple personalities. He's batshit crazy. But Galen kind of, you know, talks him down a little bit, and kind of finds out that the only reason why he's like this is because of things that other people have done to him. And so Galen's kind of like, well, it's not his fault. He's a crazy old man. Like, other people attacked him and they treated him bad, and he was just defending himself. But, you know, his other personality is his defense mechanism, and just kind of like, no, you need to kill them, they're bad, can't let anybody encroach on our territory, they know, they're going to tell other people, and then other people are going to come and they're going to attack you again, all this stuff. So Galen's put through this hard moment where he has to decide, it's like, well, do they try to just escape? Do they try to fight back against this guy? Because they doesn't really want to hurt him, because it's not the old man's fault, he's crazy. And so eventually they get away, and Galen's just like, wow, I'm really struggling with this, because I kind of can't trust people, even if they're good people, because there might be mitigating factors to their goodness, which could be bad for us. And his friend's just like, well, I kind of told you right from the beginning that there was something off about that guy, but you can't just, you know, say, oh, I'm not going to trust anybody anymore. I look up to you, and I like the way that you can trust people, but maybe, you know, reel it in a little bit and try to find out more about people before you really trust them a lot. So their dynamic between the two of them is really cool, because Galen's kind of naive, where the other kid is kind of, you know, like, very aware of how bad situations and stuff can be, but he's also just got, like, so much to offer to fix those situations, but he doesn't have any confidence in himself. So both of them have, you know, traits that they can, like, teach each other to better each other, and I find that super interesting. And then they find a an intelligent tree that's been around since the dawn of time, and it was created to have a network of trees that, all over the world, that were basically, the spirits of the forest and stuff. And the tree heals them up after they were wandering for another few weeks without food. And they learn from this tree that, it's the last of its kind and it's dying out. And because the dragons haven't done their job, the war just brought fire everywhere. That magic is slowly, like, like primal, nature type magic is dying out some. Like the mysticism of things is dying out, and it's gonna be sad when that's gone. Like the Fae kind of stuff is dying out, not like, arcane magic in general is dying out, but the originators of those sort of things are dying out, and it'll be like the end of an age sort of thing. But then the tree tells him, you have a destiny, and you might be the most important person in the world, because you need to get back to your dragon friend, and you need to convince him not to fight the first ones. Because if he does, it will usher in an age of destruction for humans and dragons and the planet. Completely, everything will be wreathed in fire. And so that's kind of just like, that's heavy. So he's like, oh, all right, I'll make sure. Briselis doesn't want to fight anybody anyway. He's good. He just wants to protect people. So he continues on his way, and then the tree sort of leads him to this cursed town where he saves these people from a curse of, there's a guy whose family died in a fire, and he thought nobody else wanted to help him because he ran into the fire and died trying to save his family. And so he cursed everybody else because they wouldn't run in and help him. So then he came back as like a wraith or whatever, and he steals all the children from the community so that all the parents can feel his pain. And so Galen sticks around some and learns slowly about these things, and then sort of decides, hey, yeah, we'll stay here and try to fight this thing. And then when it comes for them, Galen fights back. And it's sort of a combination of Galen's confidence in himself and his knowledge about things and his desire to get back to Briselis, that he's able to defeat this thing that feeds on fear and kind of is trying to beat him down with, oh, you're so useless, blah, 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 you almost got your friend killed, blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. So it's a fun little side adventure and shows how much he's grown and how he sort of gets in touch with his magic a little bit. Whereas when he left the school, he didn't really have any interest in doing magic at all. He was just like, oh, I found this book that said that, there was a pair of human and dragon that were awesome once, and I gotta get back to my dragon friend because he needs me. And so Galen's sort of learning about his magic a little bit, and that's cool. And he's also learning to, be good to other people, despite the fact that he's had a few run-ins with people who were not so good, even when these people were sort of like creepy to him and weird around him and his friend, and sort of like giving off all of these weird vibes, because at first they were like, oh, children, get out of here. And then they were like, no, stay with us. So it was really weird, mixed kind of vibes. But then he was like, despite the things that are going on here, these are good people and they need our help. So he sort of starts unlocking these heroic traits in himself, which is super cool. And then Brisalis, after defeating the first one and losing his crush, basically, he kind of like just wallows in it for a while and doesn't want anything to do with anybody. And he's kind of like, the power I have specifically is stronger than anybody else, and I can do the Song of Destruction, which scares the crap out of him because nobody else can do that. And so he's like, if I don't have control of this thing, and I can just destroy so much that I don't want anything to do with this stuff. And then he gets it in his head that he needs to go out and try and find Galen. But he's told that, if he leaves, he will no longer be under the protection of the sanctuary, and the first ones will be able to figure out where he is and hunt him down. And so he has an interaction with one of the guards at the edge where, he kind of convinces them, I was just wandering around and all this stuff. But then they have a nice little interaction that's very friendly, and he helps the guard out with one of their problems, reassuring them. It's like, oh yeah, the Uzumai are here to help everybody and hopefully eventually force a peaceful resolution to this conflict, because once the first ones realize that we're not going anywhere and we don't want to start a war, we just want peace, then they'll have to leave us alone. And then after that, he leaves and immediately gets himself into trouble because he flies into this area where the dragon hunters work, because they've captured a dragoness, and he goes to save her, and he thinks, I have the voice now. I can just scare these humans away by using my power. And so he just knocks a bunch of them over with his voice and then thinks that they're going to run away. But, it's the same group of assholes who almost captured him the first time. And so then they just get more into it when he fights back, and so they take him down and capture him. And they take him, and then halfway through their journey to where they're going, they kind of realize, hey, this is the dragon that got away from us. That's awesome. He was supposed to, have like special powers or something. Maybe we can, instead of just fulfilling our contract, we can auction him off for, a huge payday. And so all of that goes on. These assholes get paid, and Brisalis is enslaved to be a worker for one of these lords. The whole area that this stuff goes on is really weird, because apparently there's these two lords who have... It never goes into detail what the second lord has for how he manages his domination, but the first lord has a crystal similar to what the first ones use, because the first dragons have something called the Alioth crystal, and it gives them immense power to do all sorts of different things, and they channel its might. That's basically what makes them so powerful. So this human has a similar crystal, but the only thing that it really does is make it so that while he's wearing this gem that's attuned to the crystal, it forces his will on other creatures. And so he magically dominates Brisalis, and Brisalis fights against it for quite a long while before, being broken down, so that, every time he thinks of escaping, he's just like, nope, gotta do what I'm told. And then he's brought to where these other dragons who have been captured are, and they're all super happy to be there. Like, they've conformed 100% into this lifestyle and are happy about it. And he's like, how can you be happy to be forced to live here? And they're like, well, it's not bad. Like, we're used to it. It's cool. We're happy where we are. And he's like, I can never be happy here. I don't understand. So he doesn't get along with the dragons that are there. And they're like, well, don't worry. You'll get used to it in a while, and you'll eventually find that this is home. My the thing that I think is super weird about this is like there's only 5 dragons that are there. And if you think that, you know, these dragon hunters specifically hunt down dragons to sell to these 2 lords, like, you'd think they would have more dragons than that. And one of the primary uses that these 2 lords have for dragons is to teach them to fight against each other, because they're both trying to, like, dominate the other through combat. Their armies fight against each other constantly, and, like, it's super weird that it's the setup of they're basically 2 minor kingdoms sort of thing, ruled by nobles, these 2 nobles who fight against each other all the time. And it's super weird. Like, just the idea that so many people and dragons have died because these 2 douchebags keep going to war with each other is just, it's mind numbing. So eventually the Lord keeps trying to break him in properly and all this stuff, and Brisalis just keeps fighting against it until, you know, he finally learns that, you know, all the dragons who don't submit happily to the stone's dominion of their mind get burnt out and they die. And so that pisses Brisalis off, because he's like, so you nonchalantly kill dragons who do not serve you. That is unacceptable. And so he fights against it and almost dies to it before he gets the voice back and uses it and breaks the crystal and almost kills the Lord. But the other dragons come in and it's like, no, you don't kill him. We're happy to be here. And he's like, how can you be happy to be here? And I sort of think that this is a weak part in the story, because this douchebag noble has killed dragons who do not submit to him, and yet they keep playing it off as if he's, you know, he's really a good guy underneath it all. It's like, if you murder people who you can't dominate or break their minds so much that they're just vegetables, then you're not a good fucking person in any way, shape, or form. And so I really think Brisalis should have killed this guy, because he deserved it. Definitely, totally deserves it. But then, whatever. The dragons that are there argue that, you know, oh, we'll serve you happily, blah, 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 and we can be friends, and all that kind of stuff. But then the other friggin' noble jackass attacks the city with his army and his dragons, and so Brisalis is like, oh, damn it, now I'm involved in this kind of stuff, because if I don't do something about this guy's gonna kill these dragons and all these people, because he's as much an asshole as this douchebag that I almost just killed. But it's the way that Brisalis handles this encounter is amazing, because he's finally sort of like getting a hold of his power and realizing that I can use this in moderation and not, you know, just go crazy destruction song with it. So he finds that the other asshole is riding the dragoness that Brisalis was originally captured with, and he had told her, you know, just wait for me and I will save you. So he just uses his power and just tells her, stop. And then she just gets paralyzed in the sky and can't move. And so the guy's just like, "What are you doing? Get moving!" And she's just like, "I can't." And so Brisalis quickly puts an end to the fighting, but still a lot of people die over this stupid skirmishy crap that these two noble lords have going. And so he takes the other noble, throws him down, and just be like, "The only reason I don't kill you is because all your men here would then just continue fighting. So I'm going to let you live under one condition." And he breaks, I think the other lord had a gem too, and he breaks that. But he dethrones the guy, and just like, "The two of you need to be friends, and you will make an alliance, and there will be no more fighting here under any reasons, and all the dragons will go free and have the choice to stay or go as they please. And if I ever find out that that is no longer the case here, I will be back and I will destroy everything you have built here." Which is, going full superhero, just like, my word is law now because you guys are assholes and you don't deserve even the modicum of respect and restraint I am showing you, which is fantastic. So then after that, he says goodbye to all the dragons that are staying, and he tells the dragons that he was originally captured with, because she's like, "Well, I don't have anywhere to go now. I left home because I was afraid of being hunted down because I have the power of the voice." And, well, no, I don't think she had the voice. I think she's just a regular dragon. And he's like, "Yeah, you can go to the sanctuary too. All dragons are welcome at the sanctuary. Even if you don't have the voice, everybody is welcome there. It is a peaceful place where all dragons can go, all people can go, and just be left alone." So she flies up north, and then he gets the sense that Galen is nearby, so he flies off, meets up with Galen. They have a fantastic reunion, like, tell each other about each other's story and how everything's super good. And then he kind of asks Galen, is like, "Well, it was a long journey for you, but it's not really much effort for me. Do you want to go home and see your family?" And so he brings Galen home, and Galen has this reunites with his mother, who he's had nightmares of his mom, like, rejecting and disowning him. So he's super scared to go home, but he goes home. His brother's already gotten married, and, like, everybody is modestly happy, and they don't, like, strictly blame him for what's happened. Some people are, like, "Why did you do this?" But they kind of realize it was this dragon hunter assholes' fault that everything happened the way it did. So that goes well. But then, as Galen's return leaves early in the morning after promising to introduce his old, not girlfriend, but sort of, she was interested in him and they were friends, and he was going to show her to Brisalis because they hadn't seen each other since Brisalis first left. But he gets called off because Brisalis' two friends that he had made from the sanctuary had tracked him down, and he's all like, "Yeah, we got problems." And he's just like, they're just like, "Why the hell are you here at a human settlement? Why the hell did you leave? You've put us all in danger. What the hell is going on? We were so worried about you." And he's all like, "Yeah." And then when Galen shows up, they're just like, "Human, get out of here or we will kill you." And Brisalis is like, "No, he's kind of, he's my friend. we're yeah, and his friend is also my friend. Both these humans are my friend, and they're like, "What the hell do you mean you're friends with humans? That's generally not good. That can be even worse for everything that's going on." And so it tries to explain to them what's going on, but one of the dragons that was at the sanctuary has been an undercover agent because he's a supreme asshole, and he's kind of the one that talked Brisalis into leaving the sanctuary in the first place. By he sort of found out about Galen, but not that he was human, and so he was kind of hammering in. He's like, "Oh, can't believe you left your friend out there to die. You must be a real asshole." And blah blah blah. And, kind of playing mind games with him, got him to leave, and so this asshole shows up, and he's just like, "Ha! I found you. I knew you were doing bad things out here, but you're consorting with humans." And then the guardian, the guardian protector of peace, the first one, teleports in behind Galen, grabs him, and she's just like, "Thank you for showing us where he was and that he was out. You will be rewarded," and kidnaps Brisalis. And so the two dragon friends are just like, "You did this. When we get back to the sanctuary, we're going to tell Tisal, our leader, that it was you who did this stuff, and you are going to get beaten down." And they try to leave, but then Galen and his just like, "Hey, take me with you." And they're like, "What? No. Gross." And he's like, "Brisalis is my friend too, and I will do anything it takes to see him free and return." So they take Galen and his friend to the sanctuary, and they kind of get grilled there. Like, why did you even let these things into the sanctuary? What were you thinking? And they're like, "Well, he's kind of friends." And Galen just like, "I don't care what you guys are doing or what you guys have going on. Brisalis is my friend, and I will do whatever it takes to see him free." And so they're like, "All right, fine. You can maybe be of use." And he's like, "I can tell you where Brisalis is. We have a connection." And so it switches to the first one's perspective, where one of them has heard the prophecy of how all they had to do was get Brisalis, because then that will lure the entire Uzumai, all of them, the entire sanctuary of Uzumai will come to try and free Brisalis, and at that time they will be able to use this trap that they've set to destroy all the Uzumai in one fell swoop. So it's the prophecy of the end of the Uzumai. And so, the first ones are all sitting on their high horse like, "We've already won. We're 10 steps ahead of everybody else. We are so powerful." So the Uzumai all go in to save Brisalis, and they start this big fight against the first ones. And then the first ones spring their trap, and they're just like, boom! And they just start stealing the voice out of the Uzumai. And so all these dragons start losing, their magical power. And then the first ones are just like, "Now you are nothing to us." And then they also use the crystal to absorb dragons, which is what happened to Lammy, where they just get absorbed into the crystal. I forget what they call it, but it's basically how they, get rid of people. And Brisalis tells them to stop, and they're like, "You don't have any power here." And once Galen gets to Brisalis, they team up, and Brisalis' power just starts to explode. And the first one's like, "What? What the hell's going on?" And then they all focus their power on pushing Brisalis down and crushing his power, but his song just grows and grows and reverberates and just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And the first ones are just like, this can't be, we can't be defeated, typical ignorant, bad, overconfident bad guy stuff. And then Brsalis' song shatters the crystal, and that's the big part where at first Galen tells him, it's like, the tree had a prophecy that if you fight against the first ones, there will be a great calamity and terrible things will happen. And Brsalis is just like, sure, but they're about to annihilate all the people I care about, and then they're going to turn that power on you and me and kill us, and I can't let that happen. I will not let my friends be hurt. And so he makes the decision that was, obvious. Like, of course, who would choose annihilation for not just themselves, but all the people they care about, just to maybe possibly save the world from a tragedy you know nothing about? So he shatters the crystal, and the first ones lose all their power. And then it shows that all the Uzumai have their voices back, but then you also see that all the dragons that had been absorbed by the crystal are returned. There are hundreds of extra dragons laying about the temple of the first ones that did not come to this calamity first, which is what I thought was going to happen, because I was like, there's no way that they could have just, killed Lammy like that. Like, she's going to be back. He's going to save her. But it also freed the quote-unquote Dark One. The tree called him the Dark One, which I don't like the whole Dark One theme sort of thing being played off as calling something the Dark One. Ooh, like that's so like 80s tropey kind of just really shallow writing. But then he's this dragon is standing there and he's like, finally, I'm free. Thank you, young dragon, for freeing me. Now we can make sure that dragons rule all. And he gives his name. And I think that's a great start towards, they can quickly, get rid of calling him the Dark One, because now he has a name. And even though it's prophesized that he will burn the world, and even Brsalis himself has seen, a dream of the future where this dragon rules dragons and takes them across the world, burning all human civilization down and all this stuff, I can't help but think that it's like, sure, that's some of that's gonna happen. This dragon will definitely have, his own conclave of dragon supremacists, and they're gonna go around and they're gonna destroy a bunch of shit. But I can't help that thinking that Brsalis and Galen are the strongest pair ever. Like, this one dragon might be extremely charismatic. He even might have, like, the strongest voice out of any dragon, but Brsalis has to be stronger than him. Maybe not currently, but at least has the potential. I can't imagine that that's not where this story is going. That eventually Brsalis and Galen together will be strong enough to take this dragon down. So I'm pretty sure that's where this story is going, and I hope once the next book comes out that will bear true, because these characters are really interesting, really cool, and I can't wait to see how, a lot of their interactions with each other grow, because both of the main characters have, a lot of separate adventures and their own friends and contacts and stuff aside from each other. And now it'll be interesting to see some of those come together and how they interact with each other, because the Uzumai really haven't accepted that Brisalis has this connection with this human, and so it'll be interesting to see how that is, and how this new evil, this dragon dominator, which he might not even be, like completely evil either. And I like that, having, antagonist characters who aren't, like psychotic or like overly evil or anything like that. They just have, their set of values is different than other people's, and they're maybe, overzealous in their doing things, and yes, evil, but not, like most evil is just like, oh, I want to be more powerful, so I have to kill these people, like that sort of stuff. It's nice that there's more depth to it than that. And I hope that this new antagonist character will have enough depth to him to make the continuation of the story also be very deep. Because part of the prophecy was, the tree said that the first ones would not be strong enough to stop him, and so they would eventually leave the world. And so it's very interesting to see, without their magic crystal, what sort of powers the first ones actually have. And even with it, they couldn't match Brisalis' growing power. So how powerful will he eventually be versus, what this other dragon can do? And maybe there'll be like more dragon factions and stuff, and it'll be a little bit political, a little bit raw power versus raw power kind of stuff. I can't wait to find out where that goes. So yeah, that's all of Dragon Sense. It's a great book. I love the themes in this. Super interesting, and the characters actually have really interesting growth, whereas in a lot of books you can't really see that sort of thing happening, or even see like a lot of potential of it. It's nice to see two characters who get along well and have like things that they can teach each other and learn from each other. And it's like, oh, my friend is very pragmatic about things. I could probably learn stuff from that instead of being, naive and gullible and stuff. And the other way around is like, my friend's got super confidence in himself, and I could use a bunch of that, because I don't think I'm worth much. So just characters who complement each other very well and can learn and grow from each other, and do. I like to see that they do. Like, even if it's sort of, you can pinpoint the moments where they're having these character growths, it's still really good. For, being a sort of, the kind of book that I read off of Amazon's cheap section, it's very, very well done. And I hope that it continues and it delves more into the Dragon Song kind of stuff, because I can't get enough of that. So that is all for now.